The 2021 MLB season is here, and although the seats may not be full, your bankroll has the chance to be. Greg Hoops Peterson has you covered for every game, every day this season, along with comprehensive analysis and angles for getting to the window while celebrating the walk-off winners and blown saves of what will be a wild season. Now it is time for the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson.
A warm and friendly hello, welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson, got a great podcast for you. In the second segment, we are going to be going to the DMV part of the country. That's where we find Britt Ghiroli. She does a great job over there at The Athletic. She's mainly on the Baltimore Orioles and the Washington Nationals beats, so we're going to be asking about the rebuild of both of those two teams, what we can expect from a few of the pitchers for these teams, one of them to the positive, and Chris Ellis. Also going to be asking about what in the world is wrong with Patrick Corbin, so we're going to have that chat. We're also going to be taking a look at these postseason races as well with her. She does a tremendous job over there, so going to be glad to get her aboard in the second segment. Then in the final segment, going to give you guys a sign total on every game on the betting board for this Wednesday, and a little something I like to call Touch 'em All. First things first, always love to be able to answer your Twitter questions on this podcast, and you've got one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, loaders EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast, whether it be a topic that you'd like me to discuss, if it's a question, comment, segment idea, what have you. Always happy to dive into it. Did not wind up getting in any Twitter questions today, but we had a great day of baseball on Tuesday, so let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
It is up to double digits. 10 straight wins for the St. Louis Cardinals. As I've said on this podcast, this is much like that villain in a slasher movie in which it looks like you killed them 6 times, but as you are sprinting away from said slasher villain that you thought you had killed 6 times, they are gaining ground on you as they are walking while you are sprinting all out away from them. 2-1 the final. The St. Louis Cardinals wind up going 1 of 8 with men in scoring position. They wind up throwing out there a young gun in Jake Woodford, and he delivers 5 scoreless innings. Alex Reyes, Genesis Cabrera, from there, give you a scoreless inning. You wind up having Luis Garcia give up a run in that inning, but Giovanni Gallegos gets the job done in the 9th inning, stranding the bases loaded as the Milwaukee Brewers leave 8 men on base. Brandon Woodruff, tough luck loser, gives up 1 run over the course of 6 innings, punches out 10, and he takes a loss. Brad Boxberger, Brent Suter both give you a scoreless inning, and Jake Cousins gives up a run in an inning, but the Brewers going into a little bit of a funk on offense, not going to lie. This is a bunch that they've now scored 4 runs or fewer in each out of their last 3 games. If you dated it back a little bit further, 5 out of their last 8, though they do now have Willie Adames back to the fold. The Detroit Tigers and the Chicago White Sox played a big anomaly. If you wound up taking the over in this one, I really do feel for you. 5-3 the final as the under cashes, despite the fact that we had 28 hits and a pair of errors in this game, and both teams actually hit relatively decent with men in scoring position. Both of these teams wound up going a combined 7 of 22 with men in scoring position, as Tyler Alexander of the Tigers gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. From there, Ian Krall and Brian Garcia combined for 2 scoreless innings. You wind up having Michael Fulmer get the final 4 outs of the game after Jason Foley gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. And for the Chicago White Sox, Dallas Keuchel having a rough go of it. He gives up just 2 runs, but gave up 11 hits in 5 innings in the process. From there, Jace Fry wound up giving up all the runs for the Chicago White Sox, giving up 3 runs and getting 5 outs. Aaron Bummer gave you an out of the bullpen, and Liam Hendricks a scoreless 8th inning. But for the Chicago White Sox, 13 men left on base, no home runs. That wound up costing them. The Kansas City Royals were costed by the fact that they couldn't get much on offense either. 4-1, the Cleveland Indians get the W as Daniel Lynch, after the team had been 7-2, I believe, in his previous 9 starts, have now lost back-to-back starts of his as he gives up 4 runs over the course of 6 innings, including homer, as all 4 runs came in the first 2 innings of this game. As for the Cleveland Indians, Ernie Clement was able to get his 3rd homer on the season, and Cal Quantrill continues to be really good for the Cleveland Indians. 6 2/3 innings, he winds up allowing 1 run, and this is a man that has now allowed 2 runs or fewer in, I believe, something like 9 out of his last 11 starts. It is absolutely insane what we are seeing out of him. By the way, it's actually 10 out of his last 12 starts. From there, Blake Parker gives you an out of the bullpen. Brian Shaw, Emmanuel Clase, both give you a scoreless setting. And for the Kansas City Royals, just not a lot doing for the team. 9 hits and 1 run, and that 1 run came on a Hunter Dozier solo home run, his 15th home run of the season. Royals actually got a top 6 bullpen with regards to ERA ever since the All-Star break, as Dylan Coleman, a scoreless setting, and Greg Allen also gives you a scoreless setting. I was talking about the Cardinals a minute ago, and they currently have firm control of that second wildcard spot as the Cincinnati Reds lost to the poopy Pittsburgh Pirates at home by a count of 6-2, as Mitch Keller, a pretty good start in this one. He's starting to put things together. 5 2/3 innings. Now, he dodged a lot of bullets, giving up 4 walks and 7 hits, but gives up just 2 runs in the process. Nick Mears, Jason Shreve, Chris Stratton all give you a scoreless inning, and Anthony Banda got the team out of the 6th inning, as it was Ben Gamble who wound up providing the big hit in this one, his 8th home run of the season, as Tyler Mahle just continues to not be good in Cincinnati. He's got a home ERA right around 6 and a road ERA that is sub-2, giving up 3 runs in the course of 4 1/3 innings, including that homer. Michael Lorenzen, who's been pretty reliable out of the bullpen, unreliable on this night, gives up 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Art Warren was able to give you an out of the bullpen. Justin Wilson, a pair of outs. Lucas Sims, Tony Santana, and Jeff Hoffman all give you a scoreless inning. But team goes 1 of 12 with men in scoring position, stranding 11 men on base. So that was not terrific for the Cincinnati Reds. This was not terrific for the Miami Marlins. They wound up losing to the Washington Nationals by a count of 7-1. We'll talk a little bit more about this team with Britt Ghiroli in the next segment. But how about the Nationals going 6 of 9 with men in scoring position? And they wind up getting a really good start out of Josh Rogers. 7 2/3 innings, he gives up a run in his 2 years with the Baltimore Orioles and north of an 80 ERA. He's currently got a 2.16 with the Washington Nationals. Small sample size, but so far so good there. Mason Thompson, a scoreless setting out of the bullpen. And then you wind up having Andres Machado give you an out of the bullpen for the Miami Marlins. Lone form of offense, the 2nd home run of the season for Mr. Nick Fortes. The backup catcher, Anthony Bass, winds up being able to give you 1 2/3 innings out of the bullpen, and then you wind up having Sean Gunther give you a scoreless inning. But Trevor Rogers, he winds up giving up 4 runs in 5 1/3 innings. Problem was, only one of them was earned, as he was hurt by a pair of errors by Mr. Miguel Rojas along with Lewis Brinson. And then you wind up having in the 9th inning, Taylor Williams give up 3 runs in an inning, as the Nationals wind up not getting any homers, but all the work that they were able to do with men in scoring position certainly effective for them. Something else that was very effective, the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen. 3-2, they wind up taking down the Baltimore Orioles in 10 innings in a game that they badly needed. If you took the run line in this one, well, the Philadelphia Phillies offense did not come through there. But take a look at the Baltimore Orioles, and you wind up having the bullpen actually perform really well. Connor Green gives you a scoreless inning. You wind up having Marcos Diplan go 2 innings. He does not give up a run. Tom Eshelman winds up giving up just 1 run in 2 2/3 innings. Dylan Tate, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Fernando Abad along with Eric Handold combined for a scoreless inning. Tyler Wells, a scoreless inning. And then Cesar Valdez gives up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned in the 10th inning, as the Philadelphia Phillies, they wind up getting some good work out of their surprise starter, Adonis Medina. He winds going 3 2/3 innings, giving up 1 run. From there, Archie Bradley, a scoreless inning. Hector Neris, 2 scoreless innings. Jose Alvarado, 1 1/3 inning scoreless. And Ian Kennedy gets the win, giving up an unearned run in the 10th inning, going 2 total innings with that unearned run. And the Philadelphia Phillies 2 of 15 with men in scoring position. Not necessarily terrific. The Baltimore Orioles went 2 of 11 themselves, but they're able to do just enough to be able to get the job done. My New York Post play of the day was the over in the Texas Rangers and the New York Yankees, and Yankees did their part, getting a touchdown and an extra point, but the Texas Rangers offense continues to be absolutely dismal, as the Yankees wind up getting a 7-1 win. And by the way, for the Texas Rangers, a bunch has now scored 3 runs or fewer in each out of their last 7 games. You've got to be kidding me. That is absolutely deplorable for them, as Dane Dunning was unable to get her done. Gives up 2 runs in 2 2/3 innings. Been used pretty much as like a pseudo opener recently, as he winds up giving up a home run to Giancarlo Stanton, his 31st home run of the season. Kobe Allard, who was a starter for the team previously, was used sort of as a piggyback, and he winds up giving up a pair of homers, making this the 12th straight appearance in which he's given up at least 1 home run, which is absolutely amazing. Joey Gallo, his 38th home run of the season. Aaron Judge, his 36th, as for Allard, 4 1/3 innings, giving up 5 runs, all of which were earned. And then Dennis Santana gives you a scoreless inning out of the bullpen for the Texas Rangers. They go 0 of 6 with men in scoring position, and Jordan Montgomery was able to mow them down. He winds up giving up 1 run in 5 2/3 innings. very good news for the Yankees. Luis Severino came on in relief, and he looked very good. Pair of strikeouts, 2 scoreless innings. Michael King, 1 1/3 inning scoreless himself. The Boston Red Sox maintain one of those wild card spots as they take down the New York Metropolitans by a count of 6-3. Marcus Stroman, one of his lesser starts of the year, giving up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings, including a pair of homers. Kike Hernandez, 18th home run season. Xander Bogaerts, his 23rd home run season. From there, Miguel Castro gives up 2 runs while getting just 2 outs out of the bullpen. Ethan Embry comes in for 2 scoreless innings, and Brad Hand gives you an out of the bullpen. And for Pete Alonso, he does get a home run off of Garrett Richards, his 34th home run season, but a relatively okay start here from Eduardo Rodriguez. Not a lot of length, but gives up 2 runs over the course of 4 1/3 innings. Considering going into this game, his home ERA had been right around 6. You'll take that. Ryan Brazier, a scoreless inning. Ansel Robles, a scoreless inning. Austin Davis, a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Garrett Richards gives up that solo home run in 1 1/3 innings to Pete Alonso, but Winston Hernandez gets you the final 2 outs of the game, so the Boston Red Sox able to get the job done there. The Toronto Blue Jays wind up being able to get the job done, as well as Alek Manoah. Manoah, he was pretty good. 4-2 the final, as the Tampa Bay Rays have been doing a great job whenever Drew Rasmussen has taken them out. This was the first out of his last 7 starts in which he's given up more than 1 run, and tis, he gave up 2 runs. Did give up a homer for the first time in seemingly an eon. Going deep, that would be Lourdes Gurriel, who's been really hot for this team. 21st home run of the season. From there, the Rays bullpen was unable to hold up. Michael Wacha, who we thought was going to be getting the start on Wednesday. He winds up going 3 innings out of the bullpen. He winds up giving up just 1 run, and then you wind up having Nick Anderson go an inning. He winds up giving up a run in the process. And for Mr. Manoah, I mentioned a little bit earlier, goes 6 innings, gives up 2 runs. From there, Tim Mazza, Trevor Richards, Jordan Romano all give you a scoreless inning. Although I will say for Romano, he wound up walking 3, so things got a little bit airy there. But the Toronto Blue Jays, how about this team and how hot they've been able to get, as this is a bunch that they are now 7-3 in their last 10 games, along with the Boston Red Sox, so they've been able to work their way up into the playoff picture. Also, a team that has been able to work their way up a little bit recently, the Minnesota Twins. They went and taking down the Chicago Cubs by a count of 9-5 for the Twinkies. This is a bunch that all of a sudden they've been able to win now 3 out of their last 6 games, which doesn't sound like much, but at the very least they've been able to give you a little bit of something. As for the Twins, you wind up getting a home run off the bat of Nick Gordon, 3rd home run of the season, as Griffin Jacks, you did get Jacks up once again, giving up 3 runs in 3 innings, including a pair of homers. Going deep for the Cubs, you wind up having Wilson Contreras get his 21st home run of the season, and Trace Thompson, he winds up getting his 2nd. From there, the Minnesota Twins bullpen was not too bad. You did wind up having Danny Colombe give up 2 runs in 2 outs, but Kyle Barraclough, 1 2/3 innings scoreless. Ty Duffy, Caleb Theobar, Alex Colomé all give you a scoreless inning, and Ore Alcala gives you a pair of outs out of the bullpen. And for Alec Mills, he wound up hitting the middle hard in this one. He gives up 7 runs, 6 of which were earned over the course of 4 innings. From there, Scott E. Frost was able to give you a scoreless inning. Long time Nance, Michael Rucker, Rex Brothers, I'll give you scoreless innings as well. But then Mr. Trevor McGill gives up 2 runs in an inning. So a Cubs rebuild that looks very long, well, it continues to be quite long for them. The Colorado Rockies entered into Tuesday with the 3rd best home win percentage of any team in the National League, unable to get the job done against the Dodgers. So the Dodgers get a 5-4 win in 10 innings, as they didn't have any home runs, but they did what they needed to do with runners in scoring position, going 3 of 6 with that aspect. For the Colorado Rockies, Antonio Senzatella winds up giving up 4 runs over the course of 6 innings. From there, Robert Stevenson, Tyler Kinley, Carlos Estevez, I'll give you a scoreless inning, and then Ulysses Chacin gives up an unearned run in the 10th inning. Meanwhile, for the Rockies, they didn't do their job with men in scoring position, going 4 of 20, as Julio Urias was unable to add on his league best 18 wins, giving up 4 runs over the course of 6 innings. But then from there, Blake Tryon and Joe Kelly combine for a scoreless inning. Kenley Jansen gives you a scoreless inning, and then Pursuit Gratterall, Alex Vesia, they combined for the scoreless 10th inning to be able to get the job done for the Dodgers. The LA Angels just looking very helpless right now. For the 2nd straight night, they give up 10 runs to the Houston Astros, 7-5. Astros able to get it done. Martin Maldonado goes deep off of Kyle Tyler for his 12th home run season. Jose Altuve, 29th home run season. The UI end up having Elemendy CS get his 8th home run season, and then Kyle Tucker gets his 27th home run season off of one Becky Naughton, as Naughton gives up 4 runs, all of which were earned over the course of 4 innings. From there, Kyle Tyler, he winds up giving up 3 runs over the course of 2 2/3 innings. Oliver Ortega gives up 3 runs in a third of an inning. And then Art Warren and Sam Selman wind up giving you scoreless innings. And for the Angels, they were able to get a little bit of offense late. Shohei Ohtani, who has been rough to say the least at the plate over the last 40 days or so. He gets his 45th home run season. That comes off of one Christian Javier as Jose Urquidy gives up a pair of home runs of his own. Jack Mayfield, 10th home run season. Phil Gosselin, his 7th as Urquidy gives up those 2 home runs, 4 runs in total over the course of 5 1/3 innings. Javier only gives up the 1 run in 2 2/3 innings, a solo shot to Ohtani, and then Josh James was able to give you a scoreless inning. So the Houston Astros continue their winning ways. The Atlanta Braves continue their winning ways as the Arizona Diamondbacks now have 103 losses as the Atlanta Braves win by a count of 6-1, as this was a very good showing from the Atlanta Braves as Drew Smyly was used pretty much as a bulk guy. 3 1/3 innings, he gives up 1 run. Jesse Chavez as an opener, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Jacob Webb, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Tyler Matzek, Luke Jackson, AJ Minter all give you a scoreless inning. And then for the Atlanta Braves, trio of home runs: Austin Riley, 30th home run season; Ozzie Albies, 29th home run season; Ode Soler, his 24th home run of the campaign, as Luke Weaver gives up all 3 of them, giving up 5 runs in total, 3 of which were earned as he was hurt by a trio of errors out there in the field. As Carson Kelly and Josh Van Meter certainly had their fair share of them. I believe that the other one came from Mr. Smith, so that was a little bit tough. Joe Tipley gives you an out of the bullpen, and then Noe Ramirez, scoreless inning. JB Wendelken gives up a run in an inning, so certainly not what the Arizona Diamondbacks were hoping for. This was not what the Oakland A's were hoping for either. They have now lost the first 2 games of their series with the Seattle Mariners, as both are now 3 games out of the number 2 wildcard spot in the American League, as the Mariners get it done by a count of 5-2. Buttico Gonzalez, a solid start. He gives up 2 solo home runs in the course of 6 innings. Scoring deep, Starling Marte of the Marte Parte, his 12th home run of the season. Matt Olson, his 37th home run of the season. And for Paul Blackburn, he walks the plank, giving up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned. I say that because Paul Blackburn sounds like it should be an old pirate name, as he winds up going 4 innings, giving up those runs. And then from there, Sam Ball, 2 scoreless innings. He has Meadow Petit, Jake Diekman both give you a scoreless inning. And then Submergio Romo, submerged this game, giving up a solo home run. Going deep, Mr. J.P. Crawford, his 9th home run of the season, as the Seattle Mariners bullpen continues to be solid. Paul Sewald, Casey Sadler, Drew Steckenrider all leave this game with sub-2.85 ERAs, and all these guys give you a scoreless inning. And since I have to get this up by midnight Pacific, I unfortunately do not have a final on this one, but got the San Francisco Giants and the San Diego Padres tied at 5 in the 9th inning. As for the San Francisco Giants, Kevin Gausman does not necessarily look great for the San Francisco Giants team. He's actually got the worst ERA of anyone that has made a start here in the second half of the season for the San Francisco Giants. He gives up 4 runs, all of which were earned, including 3 home runs. Going deep for the Padres, Mr. Manny Machado, not once but twice, 25th and 26th home runs of the season. You then have Tommy Pham get his 15th home run of the season, and Austin Supernola gets his 2nd home run of the season. That comes off of Zach Liddell. Liddell winds up giving up that solo home run over the course of 2/3 of an inning. Jose Alvarez was able to give you an out of the bullpen. Dominique Leon, Tony Watson, Camilo Doval, I'll give you a scoreless inning, and Tommy LaSella wound up having a leadoff home run off of Joel Musgrove, his 6th of the season. And for Musgrove, really been the most consistent Padres starter all year long, but he gives up 5 runs over the course of 5 2/3 innings. From there, Tim Hill gives you a scoreless inning. Pierce Johnson, 1 1/3 scoreless innings, and then you wind up having Mark Melancon coming in the 9th inning, and as of right now, I have no idea how he did because this game has went so late that I don't have a final on it. But with that said, what we do have are season-to-date numbers on betting trends that we're seeing in Major League Baseball, as this includes the pending Padres versus Giants game, but we've seen 1,081 games go under the total so far this year, 1,062 go over, so right around 50.5% of games have gone under the scoring to covers. Favorites are 1,325 and 907 for the year, hitting at a rate of 59.4%. Home teams 12-12 and 1,043, so winning at a rate of 53.7%. But in the last 30 days, home teams actually have a losing record at 190 and 207, so they're winning just 47.9% of the time. And favorites have been drying up a little bit, 225 and 165, hitting at a 57.7% clip. Unders in this time span doing better than overs, 194 unders and 176 overs. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the last 7 days, we've been seeing a little bit more of a split when it comes to unders and overs. We wound up seeing quite a few unders on Tuesday, so they have a lead of 45 and 40 over the last 7 days. In the last 7 days, home teams a dismal 40 and 53, with favorites going 54 and 37, hitting at a rate of 59.3%. So that's what we're all seeing in Major League Baseball right now, and that's what we're seeing trend-wise. Coming up next, let's invite on our good friend from The Athletic, Britt Ghiroli. She does a great job out there in the DMV area, covering a little bit of everything baseball. We're going to be chatting with her about these postseason races and the rebuilds of the Nationals and the Baltimore Orioles. That is on the other side, right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson.
Greg is calling in a pinch hitter from the Overtime Network hotline.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Great to be joined by our guest, as she does a great job of covering all things baseball over there for The Athletic. She is based out there on the East Coast, does a lot of work when it comes to SNY and MLB TV as well as it is. Britt Ghiroli, you're able to follow her on Twitter at her name, Britt_Ghiroli. I will spell out that last name for you, Ghiroli, and then Britt is spelled with 2 T's at the end of it. And Britt, it is great to have you aboard. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It is great to have you aboard, and I know that you being out there in more of the DC/Baltimore area, you are locked in quite a bit on the American League East. So unfortunately, we are not going to be seeing the Baltimore Orioles in the postseason. I feel like that's a pretty good guarantee. But when you take a look at these teams out there in the American League wildcard hunt, how do you evaluate this? Because we've right now got a critical series between the Blue Jays and the Tampa Bay Rays, because it looks like the Rays are going to be able to win the division, but obviously the Blue Jays have everything in the world to play for, along with the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees these last few weeks of the regular season. And I think it's just such a fascinating race, and it does feel like the Blue Jays are really starting to put it together, because we've seen it all year with their run differential being very good, but they've been unable to pull out those close games, and I feel like that's something that they've started to rectify in recent weeks.
Yeah, I think they've been pretty hot, honestly. I mean, I think you nailed it with your analysis. I think when you look at Toronto, they're a young team, and they certainly could be pretty dangerous.
I agree with you. I do think that this is an offense that has been able to do a great job as well. And Ellie, you wound up putting out an article recently about one of the more intriguing teams when it comes to the National League wild card chase, the San Diego Padres. Well, that certainly was a very fascinating team, to say the least, all throughout the year. I think that Ken Rosenthal, along with Dennis Lin, wound up doing a great job of being able to highlight that. And just what have you noticed with the Padres in general? Because this was one of the best teams in all of baseball towards the beginning of the year. And ever since then, as been documented by you guys, I've been talking about this as well. They've just seemingly fallen off the face of planet Earth when it comes to getting wins in baseball games.
Right. Yeah. I think to your question, what I've seen from them is, obviously they've had a lot of injuries. They've underperformed. I think when you look at that team, the lineup could be real and the pitching could be real if it was healthy. So I think it's a case of kind of evaluating where they're at as an organization, if they're going to make changes and getting back on track here, because I think the nucleus of the team is still very strong and still able to contend. I think the Giants being so good this year obviously placed even more emphasis on some of the holes when it comes to the Padres.
And I think something that we need to point out as well when it comes to Padres is that they really manage their pitching staff and their bullpen a little bit differently than a lot of these teams as well, because coming out of the pandemic, we wound up having the 60-game season last year, and you didn't necessarily know how big of a toll it would take on pitchers. So I get the feeling that the Padres were thinking, if we wind up saving a lot of our starters, have them go maybe more like 5 to 6 innings, when in reality they could go 7 to 8. They'll be a little bit more fresh towards the back half of the season into the postseason. The problem with their theory is that they wound up having injuries. So these guys like Craig Salmon, who wound up using up a lot of innings towards the beginning of the year, they're needing to continue to pitch because they're the only guys that are healthy right now. I feel like that's really been a big undoing for them.
Yeah, I think that those are some great points for sure. And obviously with the 60-game season, it's almost like anything could happen. So, who knows how much, if anything, you can even glean from 2020. I think it is really the question.
Yeah, I agree with you, because the 60-game season, it certainly was one of fascination. I think that Luke Voigt wound up having the most homers in all of baseball last season. Certainly not the case this year. One thing that I noticed certainly did wind up translating to this year was the struggles of Christian Yelich of the Milwaukee Brewers, but certainly was a little bit of a hodgepodge year, as we do have Britt Ghiroli, who does terrific work over there at the Athletic, joining me on the podcast. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier. You're out there in the DC/Baltimore area, and no question, Nationals and Blue Jays, they are probably planning their tee times right now for October. They're not going to be taking part in the postseason, but these next few weeks are very critical for both of these teams. Nationals right now in a series with the Miami Marlins, trying to get their young guys some experience, try to pick up a couple wins to be able to end the season on a high note. And the Baltimore Orioles going to be taking on the Phillies and the Texas Rangers this week as well. And what do you think really is the goal of both of these teams? Because as I mentioned, both of these teams, they've been sellers at the deadline. recently, especially the Nationals just selling off everything this year. I feel like this is sort of a just take inventory, see what we've got. Next year is probably going to be a little bit brutal for both of these teams, but I do feel like both of these teams did wind up picking up some good pieces at the deadline. I think that both of these teams are doing a solid job of being able to build a farm system.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of answered your own question. They're trying to just build up their farm system, trying to get into a position to win in the future. Obviously, two different teams, two different strategies, two different plans, but the ultimate goal for all these teams that aren't buyers at the deadline is to get back to a point where they're not sellers and they are buyers at the deadline again. So, the road in Baltimore is probably a little longer than the one in DC. But again, I think you answered your own question there with, what they're trying to accomplish.
And then I take a look at one guy in particular for Baltimore because, well, they need all of the bright spots that they can get at this point. And that'd be Chris Ellis, someone who's the team has been 4-1 in his last 5 starts. We have not seen that very often with the Baltimore Orioles. Really, the only guy that has had a similar run this year was John Means when he was really rolling with that no-hitter, and he looked absolutely spectacular prior to going on the injured list. But do you feel like the Orioles might be looking at him as a piece for the future for this team? Because you take a look at this Orioles team, you've had a lot of guys just not pan out in general, whether that be via free agency, whether that be via the draft, and I feel like they're trying to search for any forms of brightness right now. When I take a look at this team, Ellis is a guy that's really been standing out to me.
Maybe. I think when you look at Mike Elias's plans, they aren't a team that's going to go for it next year. They aren't a team that's going to spend a lot of money. So, I haven't had any conversations with them that suggest otherwise. But I think when you look at this Orioles team, they're going to continue to keep payroll low, try to continue to move along those guys. And if it's another painful year in the major leagues, well, so be it. I think they kind of remain focused on that longer plan. And, any kind of exciting signings are going to be well down the road. I think they're going to be more like non-roster flyers on guys, similar to this year, maybe a little bit better. But I don't know if even Mike Elias can kind of point to specific guys that they want for next year already. I think they're going to take a look at what they have, take a look at how these guys continue to develop, and then see where it is according to their plan.
It's been a little bit of a hodgepodge for the Orioles, to say the least. They've had quite a few guys not pan out. Good news is Cedric Mullins, Ryan Mountcastle, these guys have had a very good year for the Baltimore Orioles, so they've got a couple hitters that they're looking to for the future. But no question, the pitching, it certainly does need some work. But something else that we also do know as well is that the Nationals, they've got one cornerstone that they're going to be looking to build around, and that's Juan Soto as we're recording this. He's got right around a 460 on base. If he was on a team that was even 500, in my opinion, he'd probably be getting some consideration for National League MVP. He has been that good this year. But when you take a look outside of Soto, you've got a lot of question marks with this team. They're going to be trotting out there some of their young guys that they wound up getting in the Max Scherzer deal. Josiah Gray, certainly one of them. Keibert Ruiz, no question they're going to be looking at these two guys to be able to build around. But are there any other guys that you think might be a little bit of a standout? Because I take a look at a guy like Yadiel Hernandez, who's been able to get some at-bats, and I like what I've seen out of him. Problem is, he's someone that's 34 years old, so even if he does wind up being able to have a good hot end to the season, it's not like he's certainly going to be a cornerstone of the future. And I feel like they've been trying with guys like Carter Kieboom and whatnot, and every time they seem to show some flashes, you wind up seeing either aggression or injury set in for a lot of these guys as well.
You nailed it already with the guys they got from the Dodgers. They were the worst farm system in baseball before they made the move to trade back Scherzer and Trey Turner and get some guys back. And so there really isn't a whole lot of depth when it comes to the minor league system with this team. They kind of waited. Some would say maybe they waited a little too late. But the interesting thing with this team is I think they're going to have to go out and sign some proven guys and kind of speed up their timeline, because they're still paying Steven Strasburg. They're still paying Patrick Corbin. They're not in the situation the Orioles are in, where they can kind of wait and keep the payroll low. The Nats are already spending a decent amount of money on guys. And so I think that they're going to watch some of those young guys you mentioned, but supplement it pretty quick here, especially while they still have Soto under team control to try to contend.
Yeah, and I think that the Nationals are certainly going to be hoping for a little bit more out of Patrick Corbin in coming years, and no doubt a good bill of health for Steven Strasburg, because he has been out for quite a bit, as we do have Britt Ghiroli joining me on the podcast. And when you take a look at Patrick Corbin, what has really been the bugaboo for him this year? Because he was someone that was absolutely amazing when the team wound up winning the World Series in 2019. In 2020, wound up having a little bit of a downer year, but you figured, hey, it's a 60-game season. Maybe you just wound up having a little bit of a tough time getting ramped up or something like that. But he has been legitimately one of the worst starting pitchers in all of baseball. And I really can't say that it was like a big dip in velocity or anything like that, but he's just been getting shelled all year long.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is with him. I think, to your point, they had a lot of guys that were really overperformed in 2019. That was the reason they won the World Series. So you can point to a bunch of things. I'm sure it doesn't help that they don't really have a competitive team. I know with a lot of guys, it gets very tough mentally to pitch well. But Patrick Corbin struggled even before they fell out of this. So the key for him has always been that off speed and being able to use that to kind of set up his fastball. And, when he's not getting guys to chase outside of the zone, which he's not as much this year, for whatever reason, he's not able to have that kind of success. And you see what you see right now, which is an ERA north of 6.
Yeah, it's been just an absolutely brutal year for him. He's up there with the likes of Jake Arrieta for worst ERA in baseball. And that's not a place where you want to be right now. And then we just take a look in general at the National League playoff picture. I know that you wound up tweeting out a couple of days ago that Corbin Burns is someone that should be on Cy Young watch. And I agree with you. I'm actually someone that was born and raised in the state of Wisconsin. But I do think that the big intrigue is going to be who winds up coming out of the National League for the World Series, because I think we'd both agree most talented team on paper is the Dodgers. But the way that everything is set up, we might wind up seeing Dodgers versus Giants in the first round of the postseason, assuming that either the Giants or the Dodgers, who winds up getting that one-game wild card, whoever winds up drawing the one-game wild card, if either of those two teams wind up winning, you pretty much get the best two teams with regards to record in baseball right in that divisional series. And I think that there's going to be a lot of intrigue with that in general, because whoever winds up coming out of that series, if they wind up drawing the Brewers, I feel like that's a team with their rotation can knock off any team in a 5 or 7 game series in baseball.
I think with the NL wild card, I disagree. I don't think, why are the Dodgers the most talented team? The Giants have beat them all year. Do they have bigger star power? Maybe. Are they bigger names? Maybe. But at what point in time are the Dodgers, if they win the NL West, not the best team in the NL? People get enamored by the Dodgers the way they get enamored by the Yankees, and people talk about the Yankees all the time. The Rays are the best team in the American League, and it's not close, and you don't really hear about the Rays. So the media, to some extent, kind of shapes the narrative there when it comes to that. The NL wild card is going to be interesting because the St. Louis Cardinals have come out of nowhere and won 6 games in a row. And I was in St. Louis last week, and to me, they kind of had the makings of a sneaky team, and people kind of laughed it off. And what you're seeing now is them capitalizing on teams like the Padres, who are totally downtrodden right now. And also you're seeing a team that's got a lot of veterans that knows how to win. And their schedule is set up in such that they still have 7 games against the Cubs, who, is a very easy schedule at this point in time. So in a winner take all, the Dodgers could very well lose in a 1-game playoff. Anything can happen. I agree with you on the Brewers. I think that pitching staff is really dangerous, 3-headed monster, so to speak. But, I think people want to overanalyze and talk about who may go. And I was with the 2019 Nationals, who people didn't think were good, and they won it all. So I think when you look at that and you kind of have it, just not the best team always. It's the hottest team. So I would not bet against some of these other clubs, and I certainly wouldn't say that the Dodgers are the most talented roster out there. I think there's a lot of really good teams, and it's just going to depend on who gets hot.
And to your point about the 2019 Nationals, as we remember, their bullpen throughout that entire season was not necessarily great, and I think that just when it comes to setting up your pitching rotations, when it comes to October, that is a big reason why I do think that the Brewers have a good chance of being able to have a nice run and perhaps be able to win the World Series, just because you wind up having that pitching. And I do think that there are some components of the 2019 Nationals that you can liken to with the 2021 Brewers, because you do have guys like Brandon Woodruff along Corbin Burns are able to start. Freddie Peralta has been dealing with some injuries, but even someone like an Eric Lauer and an Adrian Hauser can sort of be that guy like we saw with Patrick Corbin that comes out of the bullpen. Maybe he winds up giving you a start, becomes sort of that super pitcher sort of guy that just gives you 3 innings here, 4 innings there. And I think that the Brewers, as a result of that, have set themselves in good footing to perhaps be able to make a run to be able to win the World Series.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And Britt, I know that you're doing a great job over there at The Athletic. You're holding it down on the eastern part of the country. And let the good people at home know what you're all covering right now and just everything that you've got going on in general over there at The Athletic.
Yeah, just getting ready for the postseason push. Obviously at The Athletic. You can read all my stuff at theathletic.com/MLB. On Twitter, as you said, Britt_Ghiroli. Should have some interesting stuff here coming, hopefully pretty soon. But right now there is the drama of the Padres that went live. Everybody really enjoys drama, particularly baseball drama. So check that out if you got a chance as well.
Still unbelievable that we've got a Padres team trotting out there Vince Velasquez and Jake Arrieta for starts in a prime postseason race. That's something I never thought we would see before, but you know what? It's been a strange season here in 2021 for baseball. Britt has been covering it all throughout and does a terrific job over there at The Athletic. So big thanks to Britt Ghiroli for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time podcast. They give you a sign total on every game on today's MLB betting board and a little something like call, touch 'em all.
Welcome back to the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson as we're off to a quality start, and now it's time to walk it off in a grand fashion.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Great to have Britt Ghiroli of The Athletic on this podcast. Does a great job holding it down out there on the East Coast. Doing a great job covering a little bit of everything about the game that we love. So glad to be able to get her aboard. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you a sign total on every game on the betting board for this Wednesday. And a little something like call, touch 'em all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at @GUnit_D1. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go National League games first, then the American League games, and any interleague games are going to be at the bottom. So we are going to have a blasty blast with this, although we do have quite a few games in which do not have set starting pitchers as of right now. So I'm going to do my best to be able to help you guys out with those. And we are going to be starting with that first National League game of 901, 902 on the betting board. The Pittsburgh Pirates walk the plank to Cincinnati as we are into Cincinnati as the Pirates take on the Red Legs. To be determined is going to be going for the Pirates with seeing Will Crow a little bit earlier. Meanwhile, Luis Castillo is on the bump for the Reds. Currently no numbers up on this game, but if it would have been Crow versus Castillo, made the Reds right around a -230 favorite with a total of 9.6, so 9.5 or lower. We'll be taking a look at the over at 10 or higher. We'll be taking a look at the under. You take a look at Luis Castillo, and throughout his career, he's got an ERA about 1-2 points lower at home than he does on the road, and it's a little bit more demonstrative this year. A 3.19 home ERA, 5.08 road ERA. He's given up 5 bombs in 93 innings at home, 13 home runs at 83 innings on the road, and opponents are getting a 249 off of him at home. On the road, that balloons to a 259, so something that I'm certainly taking note of. And for Luis Castillo, he's been able to do a really good job recently. He's got, ever since his first 10 starts of the year, which was dismal, the team wound up going 1-9 in those ever since then, right around a 2.08 ERA overall. So the 4.08 ERA that he has for the season, a little bit misleading. Meanwhile, for Crow, if he does wind up getting the start in this one, which is very much up in the air at this point, well, he hasn't been great. A 5.77 ERA. Now, he is coming off a nice start against the Miami Marlins, in which he gave up 1 run over the course of 5 innings, but 6.53 road ERA, giving up 13 home runs in 51 innings, and opponents starting at 2.95 off of him on the road. He's backed up by a bullpen that's currently banged up. David Bernard, currently on the injured list. You're going to be without Kyle Crick, as he's been out for quite a while. And then you take a look at this offense, and Yoshi Satsugo, ever since he came over to the Pirates, has 8 home runs in something like 32 games and is hitting well above a 260, so that has been nice. You got Cabrian Hayes along with Ben Gamble, both hitting between about a 250 to a 255, and then got a lot of slugs in this lineup. Michael Perez, Hoy Park, Kai Tom, along with Cole Tucker, all these guys hitting at 220 or lower. Colin Moran is hitting about a 270, and then you got Brian Reynolds doing a good job supplying the boom, hitting at 295, 24 home runs going into yesterday. Only guy in the lineup yesterday with north of 8 home runs. Meanwhile, that's not the case for the Cincinnati Reds, as you got a trio of guys with at least 27 homers, and that's despite the fact that Jesse Winker and Taylor Naquin are currently dealing with injuries, as you've got Eugenio Suarez, Nick Castellanos, Joey Votto all in that fold. And for Mr. Joey Votto, this man has been doing a terrific job of being able to get on base he and Nick Castellanos both have between a 365 and a 380 on base, along Jonathan India, who had the leadoff spot, north of 20 home runs. He has been terrific for the team. And Max Schrock has been hitting right around 300. Tucker Barnard, along Tyler Stevenson at the catcher spot, have been rock solid. The Reds bullpen has been a little bit shaky, and the 7 and 8 hitters have been a little bit suspect recently due to injury, but Art Warren is able to give you a couple innings. I like what I'm seeing out of Michael Lorenz and Luis Cessa, Michael Givens, so you got a little bit of something there. So this is a spot in which, if it would be Crow against Castillo, 9.5 or lower, I'd be taking a look at the over 10 or higher. I'd be taking a look at the under, and certainly looking at the Reds as a big giant favorite. And Crow versus Castillo was setting the Reds right around a minus 230. 903, 904 on the betting board. The Washington Nationals hit the road face off against the Miami Marlins. Eliezer Hernandez goes for the fish. Meanwhile, Josiah Gray is going to be on the bump for the Nets. Nationals are finding themselves as underdogs, anywhere between plus 120 and plus 125. Meanwhile, the fish, anywhere between minus 130 and minus 140 with a total of 8 over and under, anywhere between minus 105 and minus 115. And for Josiah Gray, got off to a really good start to his Washington Nationals career, and boy has he been bad recently. You take a look at it, and he's given up at least 5 runs in each out of his last 4 starts, the complete opposite of his first 5 starts, in which he wound up giving up 3 runs or fewer in every one of them, and 2 runs or fewer in 4 out of his first 5. So it's not necessarily a redeeming quality, and the big thing is he's just been giving up the deep ball. He's given up 14 home runs in 45 and a third innings since coming over to the Washington Nationals. He's got good electrifying stuff, but this is also a man that his command has not been there. His walks per 9 rate is right around a 4.4, so it's been rough, and that's putting it politely. Though I will say, home ERA is right around a 7, and his road ERA is a 4.50, which go figure there. Meanwhile, you take a look at Mr. Eliezer Hernandez, and this man is giving up the deep ball as well. He's given up right around 1.9 home runs per 9 innings. Now, his walks per 9 is right around 2.5, 2.6, so he's done a solid job there. He's been a little bit better at home than he has been on the road, but still giving up 5 home runs in 23 and a third innings in Miami, and is not good considering how pitcher-friendly Miami is. But you take a look at both of these offenses, and for the Nationals, you really have 2 guys who are able to take you deep. That would be Juan Soto along Josh Bell. Both of these guys, 26 plus home runs for Soto, right around a 460 on base, which is insane. Lane Thomas, ever since coming over to the Nationals, has been hitting right around a 300. Keibert Ruiz, ever since he's been getting at-bats, has been solid. You've got Alcides Escobar, Yadiel Hernandez, along Jody Mercer, only between about a 272, 285. Talked a little bit with Britt about this Nationals team, and do have a little bit of upside with them. Meanwhile, you take a look at the Miami Marlins, and Brian De La Cruz is hitting right around a 320 for this bunch. You've got a pair of guys in Jesus Sanchez, along Chaz Chisholm, hitting between about a 245 to a 255 run for Sanchez. 9 home runs over the last 3 days for this team. Then you do have Eddie Alvarez, along with someone like an Austin Jackson. Got a couple random catchers in general outside of Jackson. Lewin Diaz, Izan Diaz, these guys hitting at 225 or lower, which is tough, but for the Miami Marlins, I do like what I'm seeing out of this bullpen. You've got Anthony Bender and Richard Blyer doing a good job of being able to hold it down. Steven O'Kurt right around a 2.2 ERA, and then for the Washington Nationals, Kyle Finnegan has been good. And Wander, I swear this guy sucks currently, is not on the roster, which is actually an upgrade for the team because someone like Andres Machado, even Patrick Murphy, is someone I would take over Wander. I swear this guy sucks, so it's something I take a look at. And in this spot, certainly set the Marlins as a favorite, but I was willing to take the Nationals as long as I was getting a plus 125 or greater. We have certainly gotten there, and with both of these guys giving up the deep ball, set this all at 8.4. So going Nats and going over in this spot. 905, 906 on the betting board. The St. Louis Cardinals are going to be hitting the road face-off against the Milwaukee Brewers. Literally, as I wound up coming on to this podcast, we wound up seeing that it's going to be Brett Anderson going for the Milwaukee Brewers, as it's going to be Miles Michaelis who's going to be going for the St. Louis Cardinals. I was thinking that perhaps we wind up getting one of the frontline starters for the Milwaukee Brewers. That is not going to be the case, so I'm going to be setting the Brewers more around about a minus 155-ish favorite in this spot. And when it comes to this total, I'm going to be looking at an 8.5 or lower to the over, a 9 or higher to the under. You take a look at Brett Anderson, and he's certainly not going to be in the rotation for the Milwaukee Brewers when it comes to the postseason, but he's been a steady Eddie guy. He's probably going to wind up giving you 4 to 5 innings, giving up, I would say, probably 2 runs in the process. You take a look at his last start, that was September 1st, wound up giving him no runs, but only won 2 innings. He has really went 4 innings or fewer in 3 out of his last 4 starts. He's given up 3 runs or fewer in pretty much all but 3 of his appearances so far this year, so he's sort of been just a guy that holds down the fort at home so far this year. 3.48 ERA. He's made 8 starts at home, has given up 4 home runs over the course of 41 and a third innings. You hear about the bend but don't break defense in the NFL. He's pretty much that as a pitcher. Meanwhile, you take a look at Miles Michaelis, and he had his best start of the year here against the San Diego Padres a few days ago, going 5 2/3 innings scoreless on the 17th, so that was very encouraging for this team. And Michaelis is a guy that's just not going to walk a lot of guys. 10 walks in 32 innings. He's only given up 4 home runs. He just has a very small sample size because he wound up missing the entire 2020 season, most of the 2019 campaign as well. So this is someone that we just haven't seen a lot out of him. So you don't necessarily have a lot of positive, you don't necessarily have a lot of negative, but what we do know is that these bullpens are probably going to be used quite a bit, and the Milwaukee Brewers have the leg up there. Devin Williams, Josh Hader, in my opinion, the best 8th and 9th inning duo in all of baseball. You've got with the St. Louis Cardinals, a couple guys have come to the forefront as well. You've had some very good performances out of TJ McFarland recently. Alex Reyes is no longer the closer for the team, but he's been able to give you a little bit of something recently. Giovanni Gallegos has been able to do a solid job as the closer for the team. Luis Garcia giving you some good innings, and then for the Brewers, guys like Miguel Sanchez, Jay Cousins have come up with some good innings. And for the Brewers, the big thing for the team is that Willie Adames is back in the fold. Ever since getting to Milwaukee, he's been hitting right around 290, and this offense is just so vastly different when he's in it versus when he's out of it. And then you've got Avisail Garcia, Omir Narvaez, along with Colton Wong, only between about a 270 to 280. And for Garcia, along with Eduardo Escobar, both entered into yesterday's contest with 28 home runs. Luis Urias is currently, I believe, leading the league in errors, but he's been able to hit right around 250, so he's been solid. And then you take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals lineup, and got a lot of guys hitting between a 255 and a 265. Yadier Molina, Dylan Carlson, Nolan Arenado, Tommy Edman, all in that fold-up for Arenado. 33 home runs going into yesterday. You got Paul Goldschmidt along Tyler O'Neill, both hitting between about a 280 to a 290. Both of these guys between 26 and 28 home runs. And for Paul Goldschmidt, ever since the beginning of the month of July, he has been one of the best hitters in all of baseball. So certainly an interesting spot. I do feel like the Brewers have a little bit more in the back end, which is why I'm setting them more around about a minus 150 to a minus 155 favorite. And like I said, an 8.5 or lower, I'm going to be taking a look at the over. A 9 or higher, I'm going to be taking a look at the under. Initial thoughts there, because this game just wound up coming onto the board as I jumped on this podcast, the numbers as I am doing this currently on this game. 907, 908 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies are going to be playing those the LA Dodgers. Walker Buehler is going to be going for the Dodgers. Meanwhile, Udaman Marquez is going to be going for the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies are finding themselves anywhere between plus 160 and plus 170 underdogs. Meanwhile, with the Dodgers, is anywhere between minus 184 and minus 190. 10.5 is your total. The over is anywhere between minus 110 and minus 120. Under is between even and minus 110 for Buehler. This guy's been absolutely lights out. He has went 6+ innings in all but 2 of his starts so far this year, and that's across 30 starts. You take a look at it. He has given up 3 runs or fewer in 18 out of his last 20 starts as well. This is a guy that has done a good job of not getting taken deep. He has allowed 3 home runs ever since June 24th. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous what we're seeing right now. That's over the course of, I believe, 15 starts. So the man has been insane. He's got a road ERA of a 267. Now, obviously, going to Coors Field, that's a little bit of a different animal, but I still think that he's going to be able to go out there and give a really good performance. And then Udaman Marquez has been a really good at Coors Field this year. This is a man that throughout his career coming into this year had a point lower ERA on the road than at home, but so far this year, 3.16 home ERA, 5.38 road ERA, 8-2 at Coors Field across 16 starts, giving up 8 home runs and 94 innings, and opponents throwing a 202 off of him. Now, he does have to face off against an LA Dodgers lineup that, let's face it, is really stinking good. I mean, you take a look at all these guys in Mookie Betts, along with Chris Taylor, Trey Turner down for what? Justin Turner down for what? Will Smith, Max Muncy, all hitting at least a 250, all at least 20 home runs so far this year. AJ Pollock has been out due to injury, so that means that you've got 2 guys in the lineup that typically have a batting average below a 250, and Gavin Lux is hitting like a 240, and then Cody Bellinger, who's just having a really rough season to say the least. Then you've got a Colorado Rockies team, which they're hitting as a collective right around a 280 at home. Got a guy in Trevor Story that's hitting right around a 285 at home compared to the Mendoza line of 200 on the road. Garrett Hampson's hitting a 300 at home. On the road right around a 200. Brendan Rodgers is hitting a 290. You've got CJ Cron, who's been able to supply the boom. 27 home runs on the season going into yesterday, and at home he had belted out 18 of those, so you got some big splits there. When it comes to the Colorado Rockies, you've been able to have Daniel Bard do a solid job of being able to close things out at home. He's got like a 3.5-ish ERA at home, like a 9 ERA on the road. It's absolutely insane. Carlos Estevez, Julian Fernandez, don't necessarily have a lot of faith in these guys, but Lucas Gilbreth has been okay at Coors Field. And then you got a Dodgers team that they've got the second best bullpen ERA in all of baseball. You've been able to get some really good innings out of guys like Alex Vesia, Phil Bickford, Justin Brule. These guys have stepped up in a big way. Then you've got someone like a Blake Tryon who's able to do a good job along with Corey Knebel. So I think that this is a fascinating spot. I do like the way that the Colorado Rockies have been playing at home. aside from the Giants and the Dodgers, they've got the best home record in the National League. So this is a spot in which I did wind up saying the Dodgers as a minus 184 favorite, which means that we wind up going to the run line in this spot. We're finding the Dodgers right in between a minus 120 to a minus 125. I was really willing to lay up to about a minus 125. So I'm going to take that minus 120 run line that I'm currently seeing on the Dodgers. And in the spot, I also wound up saying the Soul at 9.7 because I do like both of these pitchers. So going under along that Dodgers run line, 9-9, 9-10 on the betting board. The Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be playing with the Atlanta Braves. Ian Anderson is going to be going for the Bravos. Merrill Kelly is going to be on the bump for Arizona. Diamondbacks are finding themselves as underdogs anywhere between plus 165 and plus 171. Meanwhile, if you're looking to lay with Atlanta, it is anywhere between minus 182 and minus 195. 9 is your total. Over is minus 115 and the under is minus 105. And for Merrill Kelly, prior to going on the injured list, the team wound up having a really nice spurt of 6-4 in his last 10 starts, but I mean, this is someone that you saw it in his first start coming off the injured list. Didn't necessarily look like himself. Gave up 4 runs across 10 hits in 4 2/3 innings against the LA Dodgers. But what you need to know about Merrill Kelly is that for his career, he's got an ERA that's about 1.7 points lower at home than on the road. And that has been the case this year. 3.38 home ERA, 5.56 road ERA. He's given up 5 home runs in 77 1/3 innings in Arizona. 14 and 69 and 2/3 innings on the road. And opponents are getting a 238 off of him in Arizona, 298 on the road. And then you got Ian Anderson, who's been relatively similar home to road. 3.58 home ERA, 3.90 road ERA. Now he has given up 10 home runs in 60 innings on the road compared to 5 and 55 at home, but still he's been able to do a good job of being able to perform in both environments. And then you got an Atlanta Braves team that you've got a whole lot of guys who are able to take you deep, as you've got Freddie Freeman, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Adam Duvall, Dansby Swanson, Ode Soler. At least 23 home runs so far this year. Soler has been hitting right around 275 ever since getting to Atlanta. He's got, I believe, 16 home runs ever since the beginning of the month of July. Freeman, along with Austin Riley, both entered into yesterday hitting between a 300 and a 301. Eddie Rosario sitting right around 270 for this bunch, so a locked and loaded lineup. And then you've got an Arizona Diamondbacks team that you have nobody that's hit more than 12 home runs entering into yesterday. You've got Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, Dalton Varsho, Pavin Smith, Carson Kelly, all these guys with between 10 and 12 home runs, and got a couple guys who are getting on base for you, and Pavin Smith, David Peralta, a few others in between about a 250 to a 260, but you don't have a lot of boom with this team. And the Arizona Diamondbacks are right now using a bunch of failed starters as relievers. You've got coming out of the bullpen guys like a Taylor Widener. I know that they were using Jake Faria for a little bit. Looks like he's been taken out of the full. Tyler Clippard is anxious. They're hoping to get anything out of him. Joe Manette-Tipley, he's got right around a 3.5-ish ERA, but then you take a look at the Atlanta Braves, and ever since the All-Star break, they're right around 6th or 7th with regards to bullpen ERA. You've had a lot of these guys be able to shape up. Richard Rodriguez has been very good for this team. Luke Jackson has been amazing. Jesse Chavez got the start yesterday. He's been able to do a good job along Jacob Webb. So I do take a look at this spot, and I just feel like with Merrill Kelly, he is going to be able to give you a little bit more of something than he wound up doing in his first start. I feel like he should be an underdog, but I was willing to take him as long as I was able to get at least a plus 163. Seeing a plus 170, I'm going to be taking a shot here on the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks seem to do their best whenever Merrill Kelly has taken them out, and when it comes to this total, I wound up setting it at a 9.6. I think that both of these teams are going to generate some runs. So going over along with the Arizona Diamondbacks, 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board is a good old game of mystery. Yes, we got the San Francisco Giants on the road taking on the San Diego Padres. To be determined is going for the San Francisco Giants. To be determined is going to be going for the San Diego Padres. It's like the old Spider-Man thing where they're pointing at each other and they're the exact same thing. So this means that we've got to evaluate the bullpens, and obviously we've got no numbers up on this game. And when you take a look at this Padres bullpen going into the month of August, they had the best bullpen ERA in all of baseball. Ever since the month of August, it's been in the bottom half of baseball because these guys have just been so badly used up. We've seen them have to use like guys like Craig Stammen in a starting rotation role. Pierce Johnson wound up getting a start. Nabel Crisman is someone that's right now being used as a bulk guy. He wound up pitching 4 innings a couple days ago, so it's not been good to say the least. Then you got a San Francisco Giants team in which they have went to the well with their bullpen quite a bit, but they're in the top 3 when it comes to bullpen ERA. I believe that they were number 1 going into yesterday with regards to overall ERA out of the bullpen for the year and in the second half of the season, as you've had guys like Tyler Rogers, Dominic Leone, even Jarlin Garcia do a great job for the team. Camilo Doval is someone with a 426, and he's considered like the weak link of this bullpen. It's been absolutely insane. And then you just take a look at the lineup of the San Francisco Giants, and you've got balanced power, as you've got Buster Posey, Lamonte Wade, Brandon Crawford, Mike Yastrzemski, Chris Bryant, Brandon Belt, all between 18 and 26 home runs. And pretty much all these guys, aside from Yastrzemski, whose on-base percentage is like 100 points higher than his batting average, hitting at least at 259. Tommy Lascelles giving the team a little bit of something. Evan Longoria, 13 home runs at about 210 at-bats. He's hitting a 290. It's been absolutely amazing. And then you've got a Padres team in which they just haven't gotten a lot of their offense recently. Now they are getting back Jake Cronenworth, as he, along with Manny Machado, you're able to throw in there Austin Supernola, owing between about a 265 to a 278. And with Machado and Cronenworth, a combined 44 home runs going into yesterday. Tommy Pham, along with Jurickson Profar, Trent Grisham, all these guys are in between about a 233 to a 240-ish. All these guys have solid on bases, but they haven't necessarily been able to get a whole lot of anything out of these guys recently. And then you got Fernando Tatis Jr., 39 home runs, hitting at 285, but you tell that he's been drying up a little bit as well. So I do take a look at the spot, and if it does wind up being bullpen on bullpen, I'm probably going to be sending the San Francisco Giants as probably something like a minus 135 to a minus 140 favorite, and it would be a spot in which an 8 or lower, I'd probably be taking a look at the over, 8.5 or higher, be taking a look at the under, because with the Padres, also keep in mind, going into the game yesterday, they had scored the fewest runs per game of any National League team ever since the beginning of the month of August. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Giants, they lead the league in home runs on the road as well, so a lot of elements there. Game 9-13, 9-14 on the betting board. You've got yourself the Chicago White Sox hitting the road to face off against the Detroit Tigers, as Casey Mize is going to be taking the bump for the Tigres, and you've got Reynaldo Lopez taking the bump for the White Sox. The White Sox are finding themselves in between minus 156 and minus 160 favorites. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the plus price here with the Tigres, that is anywhere between plus 140 and plus 147.9 as your total over and under, both at minus 110. And big thing that you've got to take caution of in this game is that the Detroit Tigers have been putting Casey Mize on an innings limit recently. You take a look at his last 3 starts, he has went 3, 2, and 3 innings, giving up a combined 4 runs in those 3 starts, so he hasn't necessarily given up a whole heck of a lot, but at the same time, he's just not going deep into games. And the good news for the Tigers is that they've got a top 10 bullpen when it comes to ERA ever since the All-Star break, so a lot of these guys, like a Kyle Funkhauser, have been able to come through, give you some good innings. Even someone like a Michael Fulmer has been able to do a relatively solid job, so that is something that you want to be taking a look at. Gregory Soto, currently on the injured list, so they've been dealing with a couple banged up relievers along with Jose Cicerno, so also something that you want to take note of. And ever since Reynaldo Lopez has been stretched out a little bit, not going well for him. He's given up at least 3 runs in each out of his last 3 starts. He's made 7 starts in total, and now I believe that he's given up at least 3 runs in 4 out of his last 5. He's made a couple long relief appearances in which he's done a little bit better in, and some of these runs have been unearned runs, but certainly something that you do want to be taking a look at for Mr. Lopez. Has both a home and a road ERA of 3, and on the road he's given up just 2 home runs and 7 walks in 24 innings, but certainly a little bit of caution there as it is a small sample size. As you do take a look at the Detroit Tigers, and this is a bunch that they've been able to do a solid job of being able to put bat to ball, as yesterday they wound up getting 16 hits and 5 runs, which I still think is ridiculous, and this is a team that they're struggling with the deep ball, though you do have Jonathan Scope, Robbie Grossman, along with Eric Haas, all giving you between 20 and 23 home runs. These guys just have not been able to hit a lot of deep balls recently, but for Scope and Jamie Candelario, both of these guys are hitting right around 275. You've got Derek Hill, Victor Reyes, Akil Baddoo, all in between about a 250 to a 265. You need a little bit more out of guys like Isaac Paredes, as Cameron, Nico Goodrum, a bunch of guys hitting a 230 or lower. Then you take a look at the White Sox, and they've done a good job of being able to get on base as Jose Abreu, along with Eloy Jimenez, Yoel Moncada, Lori Garcia, Adam Engel, all in between about a 248 to a 264. And for Mr. Abreu, he's been able to do a great job of being able to supply RBI. 113 going into yesterday, second most in baseball. You had 10 home runs in the month of August as well, and Tim Anderson hitting a 300. Luis Robert is hitting a 351, by the way. And then Yasmani Grandal, his importance in this lineup cannot be understated. Had 64 at-bats since coming off the injured list. That was towards the back half of August. 8 home runs and hitting at 375 in that time span, so he has been terrific. And you take a look at this White Sox bullpen, and they did have to use up Liam Hendricks yesterday, but only for 14 pitches. He, Craig Kimbrell, along with Ryan Tepera, should all be good to go in this one. And for the Detroit Tigers, they did wind up using up their bullpen a little bit, but I do think that you're going to have a team in the Tigers that they are going to be able to get to Mr. Lopez. You've got to feel like, because he did wind up having so many hits yesterday, which did not wind up producing runs, that's going to be a little bit more of the opposite, and regression is going to set in. I set this all at 9.2, so going to be looking at the over. Was willing to take the Tigers. Anything north of plus 135, so going Tigers along with the over. 9:15, 9:16 on the betting board. You've got yourself the Toronto Blue Jays hitting the road face-off against the Tampa Bay Rays. Luis Patino is going to be going for the Rays. Meanwhile, Julian Merryweather is going to be going for the Toronto Blue Jays. Currently, I'm only seeing a line at DraftKings, and this is before we wound up having announced starters, with the Rays at minus 115, minus 105 on the Blue Jays, and a total of 9 with the over and under, both at minus 110. I'm thinking that this is going to change because, like I said, this was posted up before we wound up knowing these starters. But personally, I wound up saying the Rays as a minus 126 favorite, and a 9 or lower. I'd be taking a look at the over 9.5 or higher. I'd be taking a look at the under with Merryweather ever since coming off the injured list. For one, he's going to be used as an opener. I would be surprised if we see him for north of 2 innings, but ever since coming off the injured list, this is a man that has given up 4 runs in right around 3 innings, so he has not necessarily been sharp there, giving up a pair of homers in the process. And then you take a look at Luis Patino. This is a man who has been much better at home than on the road. Now, he's seen regression at home, but he's got a 3.38 home ERA, 6.53 road ERA, has given up 6 home runs in both environments, 40 innings at home, 30 and a third innings on the road, and opponents starting at 227 off of him at home. But you take a look at Patino recently, and it's been a little bit rocky for him. He has given up in his last 2 home starts a combined 8 runs across 8 2/3 innings, so that is certainly something that you don't like to see. But you do have a Tampa Bay Rays team that you've got a trio of guys with at least 30 home runs for you. Nelson Cruz along with Mike Zunino. You're able to throw in there Brandon Lau, and Lau has 34 of them on the campaign. Austin Meadows, 25 bombs, 100 RBI. Certainly has been able to get the job done. Randy Arozarena, he along Joey Wendell, both hitting right around at 270. Both of these guys have been able to do a great job of being able to draw some walks as well with Arozarena. He's got right around at 350 on base, and you got a lot of these guys on the Rays that they've got an on-base percentage that's like 100 points better than their batting average. Yandy Diaz is sitting at 255, 355 on base. You've got someone like a Brett Phillips, 206 batting average, a 305 on base. G-Man Choi, 240 batting average, 357 on base. Then with the Toronto Blue Jays, how about what we're seeing out of Lourdes Gurriel? He's got like 9 home runs and is hitting a 330 over the last 30 days. Went deep once again yesterday. Vlad Guerrero Jr., loves Marcus Semien, 40-plus bombs for both of these guys with Guerrero. 46 home runs, 105 RBI going into yesterday, hitting nearly a 320 to Oscar Hernandez, hitting above 329 home runs. Bo Bichette hitting right around a 290 with 26 bombs of his own, so it's been really impressive. Catcher spot has been a little bit rocky with Alejandro Kirk going into a little bit of a funk, but I do take a look at this spot, and I have a tough time trusting in the Blue Jays bullpen more than the Rays bullpen, because with the Rays, you now have Nick Anderson off the injured list. JP Fireeisen has been great for this team. You've got Andrew Kittredge currently on the injured list. That hurts. He's got a sub-2 ERA, and then we have seen David Robertson not necessarily be great for this team, but JT Chargois, ever since being traded from the Seattle Mariners, a sub-2 ERA with Tampa Bay, and then you've got a Blue Jays team in which Adam Simber has really been able to do some good work the last few weeks, but then you got guys like a Taylor Saucedo, Nate Pearson, the guys that have not necessarily been doing great out of the bullpen, though I will give a little bit of shout out to Tim Mazza over the last 30 days. A $1.54 ERA, so he's been able to do a good job of holding it down there. But in this spot, looking at the Rays as right around a minus 126 favorite. When it comes to the total, a 9 or lower. I'm going to be taking a look at the over, 9.5 or higher. Going to be taking a look at the under. 9:17, 9:18 is the New York Post play of the day as the Kansas City Royals hit the road to face off against the Cleveland Indians. Logan Allen is going to be going for the Indians. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Royals are out there. Juan Carlos Hernandez, and this is a relative pick'em game. If you're looking at the Cleveland Indians, going to be getting them anywhere between minus 104 to a minus 115. Meanwhile, for the Kansas City Royals, it is anywhere between minus 104 and minus 105, with your total at 9. Unders anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. Overs anywhere between even and minus 105 on the 8.5. Seeing a straight one out there. Overs minus 120 and the unders even. And the New York Post play today, well, this is going to be the Kansas City Royals money line. You've got a guy in Salvador Perez that wound up entering into yesterday, tied for the league lead in home runs with 46 along north of 110 RBI. But you take a look at Mr. Carlos Hernandez, his last start, he wound up giving up 6 or 7 runs. That was absolutely brutal. But still, even with that, the team in his last 10 starts are 8-2, and he has been very good in that time span, as Mr. Carlos Hernandez in that span has a 2.75 ERA, giving up 4 home runs in 52 and a third innings, and he's going up against a guy in Logan Allen who's always open to giving up runs. That is indicated with his ERA of a 7.11, and he's allowed 10 home runs in 28 and 2/3 innings in Cleveland so far this year. Opponents are hitting 290 off of him overall. It has been absolutely dismal. You know what else is absolutely dismal? He's backed up by a bullpen that, because you've had injuries to guys like James Karinchak, Nick Sandlin and company, that over the last 30 days, they've given up 2.2 home runs per 9 innings, and they rank at the bottom 10 when it comes to bullpen ERA. Meanwhile, you got a Kansas City Royals bullpen that ever since the All-Star break, they rank in the top 7. When it comes to ERA, you've had a lot of guys like Jake Brent, Scott Barlow, even someone like a Josh Damon and Domingo Tapia be able to give you some very good innings. And then you take a look look at the Kansas City Royals as well, and you've got quite a few guys that have been able to do a good job of being able to reach base for this team, as you've got Perez, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, Andrew Benintendi, Whit Merrifield, all these guys are in between a 275 to a 280. You've got Adalberto Mondesi along with Ansel Alberto hitting between about a 260 to a 270, and then Nicky Lopez is able to hit above a 300. So a lot of guys doing the job there. Meanwhile, for the Cleveland Indians, got a pair of guys in Jose Ramirez and Franmil Reyes with 30 plus home runs. For Ramirez, he has been able to supply 35 home runs. These two guys, along with Miles Straw, are in between about a 255 to a 267. You've been able to get a little bit of something out of Harold Ramirez, who's hitting in that span as well. But then you've got Ernie Clement, Bradley Zimmer, Yu Chang, all in between a 223 to a 227. Then Austin Edges, Owen Miller, a few others hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. So I do take a look at this spot. I think that Hernandez is in much better form. I think that Logan Allen is going to get lit up once again. Set the Royals is more around a minus 135 to a minus 140 favorite. So New York Post play today is going to be the Royals on the money line. And when you take a look at this total, this is one that I wound up setting more in the neighborhood of about an 8.8. So I'm going to be taking the 9 under, and I'm going to be making the New York Post play of the day the Royals money line. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Walker Texas Rangers hit the road to face off against the New York Yankees. Corey Kluber is going to be going for the Yankees. Taylor Hearn is going to be on the bump for the Rangers. The Rangers are finding themselves as big underdogs here, anywhere between a plus 230 and a plus 238. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the Yankees, you're going to be getting them anywhere between a minus 290 and a minus 263. Total on this game is anywhere between 8.5 and 9. On the 8.5, over is minus 120 and the under is even. On the 9, the under is minus 120 and the over is even. For Taylor Hearn, he's actually been able to be relatively solid for the Rangers. The team is 5-4 in his last 9 starts. That's not easy considering that the Rangers are 55 and 95 so far this year. And you take a look at Hearn, deep balls hurt him a little bit, giving up right around 1.65 home runs per 9 innings, but he's actually been a little bit better on the road than he has been at home. It's interesting considering the new Globe Life field has been a little bit more pitcher friendly, but 4.26 road ERA, has given up 13 home runs in 50 and 2/3 innings. That is no doubt an issue, but opponents are just a 216 off of him, and strikeouts per 9 rate right around a 9. Meanwhile, at home, that shrinks to more like a 7.7. And then you've got a guy in Corey Kluber that I'm just still not sold on him. He looked very solid in his last start against the Indians, being able to fire in their 6 scoreless innings, but his first 2 starts coming off the injured list, he combined 7 and 2/3 innings going up against a pair of light inning teams in the Orioles along with the New York Mets. Gave up a combined 6 runs there. Also made a start on August 30th against the LA Angels, and he got lit up, giving up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings. Now, I will say for Kluber, he's been much better at home than he has been on the road. 2.31 home ERA, a 5 ERA on the road, but still, he has been a guy that has been very loose with it. He's walking right around 5 guys per 9 innings at home, so that is something that you want to be taking a look at. And this is a Yankees bullpen that is not necessarily so terrific right now. Jonathan Loaiza currently being on the injured list. Recently, you have been able to get some good performances out of guys like Joely Rodriguez along with Wandy Peralta, but I have absolutely no faith in Clay Holmes with his 4-ish ERA. Lucas Luque has been solid, and Aroldis Chapman has been better in the 9th inning recently, but still with Aroldis Chapman, this is a man that ever since really the middle of June has an ERA that's north of 5. Then you take a look at the Texas Rangers, and their bullpen has been a little bit better recently. They haven't been able to get anything out of their starters, but with that said, Brett Martin, Spencer Patton, both of these guys have been able to give you some solid innings. You take a look at Dennis Santana over the last 3 days, and he's been able to whip himself into a little bit of better shape, right around a 3.3 ERA in that time span. Joe Barlow overall for the year has an ERA hovering right around a 1.5, so you've got a little bit of something there. And for the Texas Rangers, this is an offense that they have been a struggling going into yesterday. They had scored 4 runs or fewer in 7 out of their last 8 games, but they have gotten a couple guys back in the fold. You've got Andy Ibanez now hitting right around a 275, Nick Solak, Charlie Culverson, along with Yoni Hernandez running between about a 235 to a 250, and then you've got Willie Calhoun hitting at 260. Adolis Garcia has been able to slug out 30 home runs. He's hitting right around 240 as well. So even though it's not great, things are starting to look a little bit better. And then with the New York Yankees, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, along with Joey Gallo, all of these 31 home runs for the team, with Stanton going deep yesterday. Stanton along with DJ LeMahieu, Gio Urshela, along between about a 260 to a 272. Anthony Rizzo's hitting about a 250. Now you do need a little bit more when it comes to guys like Gary Sanchez and Kylo Gashioka at the catcher spot. Whenever Ronaldo Odor has been out there, which we haven't seen him in quite a while, he's been a little bit of a hot mess, but I do take a look at this spot, and I do think that Hearn is going to be able to deliver a relatively good start here for the Rangers, and I'm just not so high on Kluber right now. I was willing to take the Rangers at anything north of a plus 180, so going to be taking a shot there. Also wound up setting the total at a 9.8, so going over along with the Rangers. 921, 922 on the betting board. The LA Angels are going to be playing those to the Houston Astros. Luis Garcia is going to be going for the Astros. Jansen Junk is going to be going for the Angels. Between 9 and 9.5 is your total. On the 9, over anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. The under is anywhere between even and minus 105. On the 9.5, under is minus 120. The over is even. If you're looking at the Astros, you're going to be getting them anywhere between minus 190 and minus 205. Meanwhile, your plus price here with the Angels is anywhere between plus 172 and plus 185 for Garcia. The big thing that you've got to know with him is that he's just been so much better when he's been in Houston versus on the road. It's one of the bigger splits that you're going to find in all baseball is Garcia at home, a 2.19 ERA compared to a 4.61 on the road. On the road, Garcia has allowed 11 homers and 70 and a third innings. Meanwhile, 74 innings at home. He's allowed just 6 bombs. Opponents starting at 200 off of him in Houston, a 258 off of him on the road, and his walks have went from 28 on the road to 17 at home. So he's just been a little bit of a different pitcher. But he is going up against a guy whose last name is Junk, though I will say he's only allowed 2 earned runs in his 8 total innings at the big league level, but he's allowed 6 total runs. So you got that going on. He's allowed 3 home runs over the course of 8 innings. I took a look at his minor league numbers. A guy that is very prone to giving up the deep ball. Now, he was playing out there in Salt Lake City a little bit as well, so you got that aspect of it. But this Angels team, ever since the All-Star break, second worst team with regards to runs per game, and Shohei Ohtani, he's been in a funk, getting right around the Mendoza line ever since late July. Still has 44 home runs, though. Jared Walsh, he has only given you 5 home runs since the All-Star break as well, so he's been scuffling, but he, along with Phil Gosselin, you're able to throw in their Max Stassi, David Fletcher, all these guys in between about a 250 to a 270-ish, though I will say for Fletcher, he's hitting right around 245 ever since the beginning of the month of August. Got a couple dead bats out there, Jack Mayfield, Luis Renanifo, both of these guys hitting at 210 or lower. You haven't necessarily been able to get a lot out of someone like a Juan Lagares as well. And then you've got a Houston Astros team, in which you've got a lot of guys bringing the boom. Carlos Correa, Kyle Tucker, Jordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve, all have at least 24 home runs. All these guys hitting at least a 275. Yoli Gurriel hitting above a 3. This team has been without Michael Brantley for a little bit, so Siri, give me Jose Siri, a man who entered into yesterday with 4 home runs and 25 at-bats and hitting up 400. Jake Myers is hitting at 275. Alamendi Diaz has given you some good at-bats, and for the Angels, Andrew Wantz probably wants the start of the season back. He's got north of a 5 ERA. Jimmy Ergotta is someone that I have no faith in the bullpen. Steve Cishek has been solid with a 3 ERA, but then you take a look at the Houston Astros. Kendall Graveman has been able to do a terrific job with this team, a sub-2 ERA all season long. You've got that with Ryan Presley as well. Blake Taylor's been able to give you some good innings. Someone like a Yimi Garcia has right around a 3.88 ERA. He has been regressing a little bit with the Astros, right around a 4.75 ERA since the trade deadline, but still has been able to give you quite a bit of something. This is a spot in which I do think that the Astros should be a sizable favorite. I set them at north of a $2 favorite despite the recent struggles of Garcia on the road, and with the run line, you're seeing that right around a minus 122 to a minus 130 on the Astros. Was willing to lay up to a minus 138. So this is a spot in which I'm going to be taking that run line of the Astros. Set this sold on a 9.1 as well because of the way that the Angels are hitting. So going to be targeting a 9.5 under along with the Astros run line. 923, 924 on the betting board. The Oakland A's are going to be playing us to the Seattle Mariners. Chris Flexen is going to be going for the M's. Cole Irvin is going to be on the bump for Oakland. Oakland is finding themselves anywhere between minus 133 and minus 145 favorites. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Mariners, anywhere between plus 123 and plus 127 is your price. 8.5 is your total. Unders anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. Overs between even and minus 105. For Cole Irvin, things have really regressed on him in a bad way. And for Chris Flexen, things have progressed on him in a really good way. In Flexen's last 9 road starts, he's allowed 3 runs or fewer in 8 of them. So he has really been able to shape up after his first few road starts of the year. Were not necessarily so great for Irvin. 3.81 home ERA, a 4.08 road ERA. So he's been relatively consistent across the board. A guy that's not going to put you on base cheaply because his walks per 9 innings hovering right around 175. So he's done a solid job there, and he's done a good job of not giving up the deep ball. 8 home runs at 82 and 2/3 innings. At home, he just gets hit a lot. Overall, opponents are at about a 271 off of him, and that has really shown through recently. You take a look at it, and he has now given up at least 3 runs in 6 out of his last 7 starts. Now, I will say, in his last start, quite a few of those were unearned against the LA Angels, but still something that you do need to be mindful of because he's not a guy that's going to give you a lot of swings and misses. Chris Flexen, certainly not one of those guys either, but you take a look at the Seattle Mariners, and you've got a pair of guys that will be able to give you 34 plus home runs. Kyle Seager along with Mitch Haniger. Ty France is sitting right around 295. J.P. Crawford along with Abraham Toro. Ever since Toro has come over, he and Crawford hitting about a 265 to a 275 with the Seattle Mariners. You do have a lot of dead bats in this lineup, though. Seager, I mentioned a little bit earlier. Jake Bowers, Jorge Mamalois, Tom Murphy, Jake Fraley, Dylan Moore, Jared Kelenic. All these guys are hitting 220 or lower, but I will say for Jared Kelenic, after he had just a dismal start to the year, he's been able to give you a little bit more of something recently. In the last 15 days going into yesterday, hitting a 280. So that is something that you'd like to see. Meanwhile, you take a look at the Oakland A's and Matt Chapman ever since the beginning of the month of August. Something that you also like to see. Pounding out 12 home runs with an on-base percentage that is in the neighborhood of about a 355 to a 360. You got a lot of guys for the Oakland A's that overall this year have at least a 350 on base. Matt Olson, Josh Harrison, Starling Marte of the Marte Parte, Mark Canha, all in that fold. And for Mark Canha, along with Sean Murphy, you're able to throw in there Seth Brown, all between 16 and 18 home runs. Yan Gomes has been able to pound out 14 bombs. He's hitting at 250. He's been invaluable at that catcher spot. Elvis Andrus, after he wound up having an absolutely terrible start to the year, for one, he's out fully healthy. And for two, he's been able to do a solid job of being able to reach base in the last 3 days. He's hitting right around a 333, limited amount of at-bats, but he's been able to give you a little bit of something. But the problem for the Oakland A's is their bullpen over the last 3 days has right around a 5-ish ERA. It's been one of the worst in all of baseball. Lou Trevino, Sergio Romo, these guys are starting to fail you. Yasmero Petit has been a little bit up and down. Deolis Carrera has been actually one of the best relievers for this team. And then you take a look at the Seattle Mariners, and I like what you're getting out of Casey Sadler. Drew Steckenrider right around 2.25 ERA. Even someone like a Yohan Ramirez has been able to give you some very good innings over the last 30 days. He's got a sub-2 ERA. So I do take a look at this spot, and I do think that you're going to be able to get a good start out of Flexen. I was willing to take the Mariners at anything north of a plus 115. So getting north of a plus 120, it's going to be a take for me here on the M's, and I also wound up saying this all at 8.3. I think that it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for both offenses, so going to be diving under, and I'm going to be going with the Mariners with the plus price. 925, 926 on the betting board. You've got the Philadelphia Phillies playing us to the Baltimore Orioles. Keegan Aiken is going to be going for the Royals. Meanwhile, Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler is going to be going for the Phillies. Phillies are the biggest favorite on the board, anywhere between minus 292 and minus 320. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the poopy Orioles, it's anywhere between plus 250 and plus 266. 8 to 8.5 is your total. On the 8.5, unders anywhere between minus 115 to minus 125. Overs anywhere between plus 105 and minus 105 on the 8. Over is minus 115 to minus 120. Under is anywhere between even and minus 105. And I think that there's a possibility that the Phillies might be able to get here all by themselves. You take a look at what Bryce Harper has done ever since the beginning of the month of August. 17 home runs. It's absolutely insane. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies in the early part of this series have not been able to find any offense whatsoever, but you still have a guy in Gene Segura hitting right around 300. Now, the guys that you need to pick it up, Brad Miller, Andrew McCutchen, Didi Gregorius, all these guys in between about a 226 to a 210, but with McCutchen, 331 on base, he has been able to supply 24 home runs. You got a guy in Odubel Herrera, he and JT Realmuto hitting between about a 255 to a 265, but then you take a look at the Orioles and got a little bit of offense with the team as well. You've got Austin the Say's kid, Anthony Santander, Trey Boom Boom Mancini throwing there, Richie Murn, all in between about a 245 to a 260 with Mr. Boom Boom Mancini and Austin the Say's kid, both 21 home runs apiece. Cedric Mullins, he's hitting above a 300. He, along with Ryan Mountcastle, is hitting about a 265, have been able to deliver for you between 29 and 31 home runs apiece. But then you've got the slugs on this team. Pat Valleca, Kelvin Gutierrez, Ryan McKenna, Austin Wynns, the list goes on and on of guys earning a 215 or lower, throwing their DJ Turn It Up, Stewart, and for the Baltimore Orioles, they were able to do a relatively solid job with their bullpen game yesterday, but really, other than Cole Sulzer and Tanner Scott, you haven't necessarily been able to get much of anything out of this bullpen. Fernando Abad, he is very bad. Dustin Knight just wound up getting DFA'd. Mike Bauman has an ERA that is north of 11. Eric Handels been able to give you a couple okay innings, but I think that that's going to regress. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, they too actually wound up doing a surprisingly okay job with their bullpen game yesterday, which the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen has not necessarily been so great. Archie Bradley wound up getting used up yesterday along with Jose Alvarado, but you have been able to get a little bit of something out of Ian Kennedy recently after he was very bad. Coming over from Texas in the first few weeks, he's been able to settle down a little bit. Ramon Rosso has been an okay pitcher at home. On the road, he's been just unearthly bad. Damon Jones is someone that they're going to be looking to for innings as well, so I do think that you're going to get quite a bit of runs out of these bullpens. But the good news for the Philadelphia Phillies is that they've got Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler. Now, I recognize that he wound up having a little bit of a rough stretch towards the month of August, but here in the month of September, he's made 3 starts, a combined 17 and 2/3 innings across them. He has given up 2 runs and 3 walks. He has looked absolutely amazing. This after he wound up in the month of August having 5 out of his 6 starts in which he gave gave up at least 4 runs, so that was a very brutal stretch. He wound up giving up 3+ runs in something like 7 out of his last 10 starts prior to the month of September, so he's been able to rein it in. Meanwhile, Keegan Aiken, he's been bad at the beginning of the year. He was bad in the middle of the year. He's been bad recently. He's given up at least 3 runs in each of his last 3 starts. He's given up at least 1 home run in each out of his last now 7 starts, so that is not something that is a redeeming quality for him. And you take a look at what he's been able to do on the road. A 7.71 road ERA, 1-6 record, 12 bombs given up in 49 innings, and opponents starting at 3.13 off of him. I think that this is exactly what the Phillies need to be able to get online. When I set my money line, I set it at -322. If you're looking at the run line in this spot, which I'm sure that many of you are, you're getting the Phillies between a -135 to a -142. Sign me up for that. I was willing to lay about a -175, so I'm going to be taking the 8 over. I set this all at 8.3, and I'm going to be taking the Phillies on the run line. 927, 928 on the betting board. You've got the New York Metropolitans, and they are on the road facing off against the Boston Red Sox, as Chris Sale is going to be going for the Sox. Meanwhile, Taijuan Walker is going to be going for the Mets. This is one that was announced a little bit late. Was looking like it was going to be Tyler McGill. Instead, it's going to be Mr. Walker. Only Circa has a number up on this game. Total is 9 over and under, both at -110. -171 is your price on the Red Sox. +155 is the price on the Mets. And if you're looking at the Red Sox run line, finding that at a +111, and I am a taker on this one. I was willing to lay any sort of price that was less than a -105 in this spot on the Red Sox run line. So this is going to be appealing to me. And this is a situation which I did wind up setting the total at a 9.3. So I am going to be taking a look at the over in this spot. When you take a look at Chris Sale, he has been able to do a solid job of just consistently giving you right around 5 innings, giving up between 1 and 2 runs. He's got a 2.40 ERA. It's not necessarily gotten blasted in any of his starts. He did wind up having a start in which he wound up giving up 5 runs about a week or 2 ago, but only one of those was earned. He was hurt badly by his fielding. He's done a good job of being able to keep the ball in the yard by and large. As you take a look at him across 30 innings, has given up 5 home runs, but keep in mind that 2 of those home runs came in his first start back. So ever since then, it's been more like a home run per 9 innings. Meanwhile, Taijuan Walker, he has been getting lit up quite a bit recently. He gave up 6 home runs in his first 17 starts of the year. He has now made, ever since then, 11 pitching appearances, and he has given up 17 home runs in that time span. And he's just been not doing a good job of being able to hold it down in general. As you take a look at it, he has now given up at least 3 runs in his last 11 pitching appearances overall. In 9 of them, it has been just ghastly bad. He's backed up by a bullpen of the Mets that starting to get used up a little bit. You're noticing someone like a Miguel Castro that wound up giving up a pair of runs yesterday. Things are drying up with him. Seth Lugo has been able to do a very good job for this team. You take a look at what he's been able to do over the last, I would say, about a few weeks, and it's been okay, but even over the last 3 days, he's now got right around a 4.6 ERA. Aaron Loup has really been amazing for the team with a 1 ERA, but who else are you going to be able to get out of this team? Meanwhile, for the Boston Red Sox, the bullpen had its very big trials and tribulations in the month of August, but now you've got Hirokazu Sawamura along with Matt Barnes off the injured list. I like what I'm seeing recently out of Adam Ottavino as well. Ottavino has had his ups and his downs, but a 2.25 ERA over the last 2 or so weeks for this bunch. You've had Garrett Richards be able to give you some good long relief as well. And then you take a look at the Red Sox and just all the guys are able to match for you. You've got a whole bunch of guys that have between, I would say, right around 23 to 28 home runs so far this year. In Kyle Schwarber, Hunter Renfroe, JD Martinez, Bobby Dahlbeck, along Xander Bogaerts. And for Bobby Dahlbeck, he has really went under the radar over the last 3 days. 9 home runs, hitting right in the neighborhood of about a 320. JD Martinez has been right around a 280. You've got Rafael Devers, 275 batting average, 34 home runs, north of 100 RBI. And then Xander Bogaerts hitting above a 300 himself. So this has been very good for this team. Then you take a look at what you're able to get out of the New York Mets. And Pete Alonso and Long Tommy Bias, both 30-plus home runs. Both of these guys hitting between about a 258 to a 264. So these guys have been able to hold it down. Brandon Nimmo's back. He's hitting nearly 300. But how about Michael Conforto, Kevin Pillar, along with Francisco Lindor? Along between a 223 to a 230. They've got to work on that now. Lindor had that 3-home run game against the New York Yankees, but has been far from impressive. And then you've got Thomas Nito, James McCann, Dom Smith. Only between a 233 to a 244. Just don't have a lot of faith in this Mets lineup. I do think that they're going to touch up Chris Sale a little bit, but I think that a lot of this damage going to be done by the Red Sox. So that's why I am going with this total over, and I'm going to be taking the Boston Red Sox on the run line. And wrap things up with 929, 930 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins hit the road to face off against the Chicago Cubs, as you've got Joe Ryan going for the Twins. Kyle Hendricks on the bump for the Chicago Cubs. Cubs are finding themselves as either a slight favorite to a slight underdog. As bad as a -110, as good as a +102. Meanwhile, with the Twins, it's the exact same ordeal. You're going to be able to find them as good as a -103, as bad as a -112, and you've got no total up on this game because it is a Wrigley Field game. But right now, I am seeing winds blowing in between 15 and 20 miles per hour. So this is going to be very favorable pitching conditions, to say the least, which is why I wound up setting the total at 7.1. So a 7 or lower, I'll be willing to take an over. 7.5 or higher, I'm going to be taking a look at the under. And that's big for Kyle Hendricks because whenever the wind is blowing in Wrigley Field, he's always been very successful throughout his career. When the wind is blowing out, it's just game, set, match, because this is very much a fly ball pitcher, a guy that pitches contact. You take a look at him so far this year, his strikeouts per 9 rate, it is sub 7. He has given up, in terms of home runs on a per 9 innings basis, right around 1.5, 1.6-ish, and he's actually been worse at home than he has been on the road. He's been dealing with a lot of wind blowing out situations, which is why at Wrigley Field so far this year, a 5.28 ERA compared to a 4.32 road ERA, and throughout his career, he's always been having an ERA north of a point better at home, so a little bit of an anomaly for him. And the big thing with him, 17 home runs in 87 innings given up at home, 12 home runs in 83 innings given up on the road. So with the wind blowing in, that is certainly going to help him out. And then you take a look at Joe Ryan, and he's actually been spectacular for the Twins in his first 3 starts, giving up a combined 4 runs in 3 starts, going 5+ innings in every one of them. The team is just 1-2 in those starts, but that's because they provided him with a whopping 4 runs of support in his first 3 starts. I think that they're going to be able to do a little bit of a better job here, but you do take a look at this Minnesota Twins team, and you've got a lot of guys that they need to be picking it up with the batting average, as you've got Ben Roadfit along J.K. If you're able to throw in there Max Kepler, Miguel Sano, and Dalton Simmons, all these guys, they're in a 225 or lower. Now, you do have Nick Gordon along with Mitch Garver throwing there, Josh Donaldson, only in the neighborhood of a 245. And for Miguel Sano, ever since the beginning of the month of July, right around a 340 on base, and he's been able to supply the boom. He's got 29 home runs, got a guy in Josh Donaldson, 24 home runs, and then you've got Armand Ore-Palanco with north of 30 home runs. He's been able to hit 275. You got Luis Arias, Brian Buxton, both hitting at 285, but for Buxton, ever since coming off the injury list, has been hitting right around 200. Then you've got the Chicago Cubs, man, Frank Schwindel. How about what this guy has been able to do going into yesterday, over the last 30 days, hitting at 368 with 9 home runs. I mean, it has been insane to watch him work. Rafael Ortega is hitting at 275 for this team. You've got Matt Duffy, who's hitting more like a 265. Been able to get a little bit of something out of Trace Thompson in his first couple games. Nico Horner's hitting at 300 for this bunch. You need a little bit more out of a couple of these guys. Both of their romans have been absolute disasters for them. Ian Happ only hitting at 225 for the year, but you take a look at Ian Happ ever since the beginning of the month of August, 13 home runs, and he's got an on-base percentage that's hovering right around about a 360-ish, so he has really been able to shape up as well. Contreras went deep yesterday for his 21st home run of the season, and then you take a look at both of these bullpens, and you really don't want too much of either of them, but you've been able to find a couple gems here with the Chicago Cubs. Adam Morgan is right around a 3.2-ish ERA. Rex Brothers, this guy's been bad, but Cody Hoyer, ever since coming over from the White Sox, he's got right around 2-ish ERA. You've been able to get a little bit of something out of someone like Dylan Maples. I think that he is back on the injured list, which means that you get the ERA of 6 with Tommy Nance, but certainly you've been able to get a couple guys coming to the forefront. Meanwhile, you take a look at the Minnesota Twins at Ode Alcala has an ERA that's hovering right around a 4.3. Alex Colomé has been a big giant waste of money with his 3.8 ERA. Kyle Bearclaw has a north of 5 ERA. Luke Farrell along with Ralph Garza Jr. have actually been 2 of your better relievers for this team, so I do take a look at this spot. I think that Hendricks is going to be thriving with the wind blowing in, so wound up saying the Cubs as more around about a minus 140-ish favorite, so I'm going to be taking them on the money line, and like I said, 7 or lower, going to be taking a look at the over 7.5 or higher, going to be taking a look at the under on this total, and that will wrap things up for the Baseball Betting Podcast on this Wednesday. A big thanks to Britt Ghiroli for joining me in the last segment. If you like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you got a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, got 1 or 2 ways we all fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at gunit_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, naming does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast. Fire that 5-star review, and I'll be coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.